The Declaration of Independence was established on July 4th, 1776, by the Second Continental Congress. Here's how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used the precedents set by the Declaration in his movement for civil rights. 192 years later, the Declaration of Independence values still had hold over American society. Many civilians held these values close to their hearts and pushed for them to be applied to everyone, as all men are created equal. The Declaration of Independence was primarily written by Thomas Jefferson, who pulled heavily from the works of John Locke, a British philosopher. John Locke's works, The Treatise of Government, covered the social contract. A social contract states that the government only has power as long as it has consent from the governed. The social contract also states that the government must protect the natural rights of its citizens, the rights of life, liberty, and property, or as Thomas Jefferson stated, the pursuit of happiness. The social contract also states that if laws are unjust, the citizens have the right to revolt against the unjust government and fill its place with a government that protects these natural rights and carries out the citizens' wishes. In Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, he goes over the concept of just versus unjust laws, which reflects heavily on John Locke's social contract, used in the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson. King states that unjust laws do not align with the moral code and often put people or minorities at lower standpoint than the majority. However, just laws are equal for everyone and align with the moral code, or what God intended for all of humanity. King pulls from this concept of the Declaration of Independence by calling all of his brothers and sisters to protest peacefully against these unjust laws, as if injustice exists somewhere, justice is able to exist nowhere. Also against what was claimed in the Declaration of Independence, King states that racial segregation violates the natural rights that were promised to American citizens. Contrary to the separate but equal clause used in many Supreme Court rulings, King argues that racial segregation violates the natural rights that are supposed to be protected by the government in the American Declaration of Independence. In 1954, another landmark case was heard by the Supreme Court. This time it was Brown versus the Board of Education, which made segregation in schools illegal, yet it still remained legal in public shopping centers, transportation, and the workplace. Many remained furious that segregation remained legal in places outside of the school environment, as it still impacted many's daily lives. People became even more infuriated after the arresting of Rosa Parks, which gave rise to the Montgomery bus boycotts of 1955 to 1956, as people started to push for this equality that the Declaration of Independence so promised them. Then, with the help of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., peaceful protests started to spark nationwide as people started to push for the natural rights they were promised in the Declaration of Independence. After Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested in Birmingham, Alabama, he came out with his statement, a letter from Birmingham jail, which reflected heavily on many of the precedents set by the Declaration of Independence. The civil rights movement truly kicked off in 1896 after the passing of Plessy v. Ferguson, a landmark case by the Supreme Court that ruled racial segregation as legal. This case was supported by the Jim Crow laws, which were later passed, claiming that there were separate white and black facilities under the separate but equal clause. These laws enforced this legalized racial segregation by making sure that law enforcement officers and any white civilian upheld the fact that separate white and black facilities should be upheld. However, nothing is truly separate but equal, which many argued was against the natural rights promised in the Declaration of Independence, as everyone should be truly equal, meaning that there should be one facility for all American citizens to use. This denying of African Americans to equal facilities, voting rights, education, and job opportunities is heavily against the fact of the natural rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, as these African Americans were not offered the same opportunities as the rest of the American citizens. The Declaration of Independence continued to have a strong hold on Martin Luther King Jr.'s push for civil rights, as he continued through his speeches of "I Have a Dream," calling the Declaration of Independence a promissory note. In conclusion, the Declaration of Independence set a precedent of rights and equality that the civil rights movement tried to defend for everyone equally, as all men truly should be created equal under the American government. In today's world, these founding values continue to help America push forward to make sure that everyone truly has justice, as if injustice exists somewhere, justice is able to exist nowhere. As presented by our founding father, Olivia Carollo. The sources used in this video were Encyclopedia Britannica and AP US Government course. Thank you, Ms. Allen, for your help.